This guy didn't eat meat. He slept on a literal wooden board. He was a priest so dedicated that a queen chose him to be her personal guide to God. People said he was a genius, super holy, and didn't care about anything fancy. But this same guy would go on to torture thousands of people. It's insane. His crazy devotion became the master plan for some of the worst suffering imaginable. We're talking turning faith into a weapon and prayer into a death sentence. So how did a guy who promised to be holy become the Grand Inquisitor, a name that literally means torture and fanaticism today? This is the unbelievable story of Tomás de Torquemada, and what happens when faith and fear go way too far. Okay, to get how this guy's mind worked, you have to see the world he lived in. 15th century Spain was not one country. It was a total mess of warring kingdoms, a crazy frontier where different cultures and religions were constantly crashing into each other. For 800 years, the country was defined by one insane war, the Reconquista. This was the long, slow, and unbelievably brutal Christian reconquest to take back territory from the Muslim Moors. By the mid-1400s, victory was so close. Only Granada in the south was still under Muslim rule. This massive war created a super-specific Spanish identity, super aggressive, fiercely Catholic, and they did not like anyone who was different. The dream was one Spain, under one Catholic king and queen. This was the ultimate goal for two rulers, Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon. Their marriage in 1469 was a genius political move, uniting the two biggest kingdoms and creating a new mega power. Their shared goal was simple: forge a new Spain with order and, most importantly, 100% religious unity. And right into this explosion of politics and religion steps our guy, Tomás de Torquemada. Born in 1420, he joined the Dominican order, a group of monks known for being the most hardcore and disciplined thinkers out there. And Torquemada quickly got a reputation for being even more devout and more intense than anybody else. He lived a life of insane self-denial, rejecting everything to be spiritually pure. This intense vibe got the attention of the young Princess Isabella. Before she was a powerful queen, she chose this super strict priest to be her personal spiritual coach. They formed this insane bond, built on a belief they both shared, that Spain's strength depended completely on how pure its Catholic faith was. Torquemada wasn't just a priest to Isabella. He was a mentor who shaped her entire worldview, convincing her that any threat to the faith was a threat to the kingdom itself. And in 15th century Spain, it felt like threats were everywhere. The number one target of all this suspicion? A group called the Conversos. These were Jews who had converted to Christianity, a lot of them because of insane social and political pressure. Many of them became super successful, merchants, doctors, and leaders, and all their wealth and power made the old Christians incredibly jealous. A crazy conspiracy theory started spreading, that tons of these conversos were faking it, that they were crypto-Jews, secretly practicing their old religion, trying to destroy the Christian community from the inside and poisoning the soul of Spain. Torquemada and Isabella saw these people not just as sinners, but as a massive threat to their vision of a unified Catholic Spain. Their solution to this problem was an institution with terrifying power, the Inquisition. Popes had run inquisitions before, but Ferdinand and Isabella wanted their own version, one controlled by them, not by Rome. In 1478, after leaning on the Pope, they got a license to start the Tribunal of the Holy Office of the Inquisition in Spain. It was a court run by the crown, and in 1483 there was only one man Isabella trusted to lead it. Tomás de Torquemada was made the first Grand Inquisitor of Spain. The quiet monk who had spent his life in a monastery now had unbelievable power. and he used it to build a machine of absolute terror. Under his command, the Inquisition exploded from one office in Seville to a network of 24 holy offices across the country. It was a giant spy network that reached into every single part of Spanish life. Torquemada's genius was in the system he created, a process built to crush anyone who stepped out of line and make everyone terrified. It started with an edict of grace. When inquisitors rolled into a town, they gave everyone a 30-day grace period. During this time, heretics could turn themselves in, confess, and get a lighter punishment. This was a 500 IQ evil move. It didn't just get confessions. It made people turn on each other. Anyone who confessed had to name all their accomplices, every friend, every family member. A massive wave of snitching would rip through the town, fueled by pure fear, old rivalries, and religious panic. The engine of this machine ran on anonymous accusations. Anyone could be accused, and you would never know who did it. The second you were charged, you were presumed guilty. Your property was immediately seized to pay for your own jail time and trial, leaving your family with absolutely nothing. You were locked away in secret prisons, sometimes for months or even years, with no idea what was going to happen to you. The Inquisition's goal was simple: get a confession. The trial itself was a complete nightmare. There was no jury, and you couldn't question any witnesses. They wouldn't even tell you the specific charges or who accused you. They just ordered you to think hard and confess your heresy. If a confession didn't come, the Inquisitors had another tool, a tool that Torquemada personally authorized and regulated with chilling precision: torture. In the Church's eyes, this wasn't punishment. It was a purification method to find the truth. The rules Torquemada himself wrote said a person shouldn't be permanently crippled or killed, and a doctor had to be there. But this was a total joke. The methods were unbelievably brutal. One common method was the strappado. They'd tie the victim's hands behind their back, sling a rope over a pulley, and just yank them into the air, completely dislocating their shoulders with insane pain. For extra effect, they'd tie heavy weights to their ankles and then drop them suddenly, jerking their entire body and ripping their joints apart. Then there was the water torture. The accused was strapped to a frame, with their head forced lower than their feet. A cloth was shoved down their throat, and water was poured over it, making them feel like they were agonizingly drowning. And of course, there was the rack. The victim's limbs were tied to rollers on a wooden frame. With every crank of the handle, the ropes would tighten, stretching the body, pulling joints right out of their sockets. If they kept turning, it could tear muscles and even rip limbs right off the body. Under that kind of agony, almost everyone confessed. It didn't matter if the confession was true or just a desperate lie to make the pain stop. Once they had the confession, it was time for the horrifying grand finale. This was the auto da fe, the act of faith. This wasn't some quiet sentencing. It was a massive public show, a piece of government-sponsored theater designed to be as huge and terrifying as possible. On the day of the auto da fe, the entire town would gather. They'd march the condemned through the streets, forcing them to wear a cone-shaped hat and a yellow robe called a San Benito, which was painted with flames and demons for the unrepentant people who were about to be burned. After a super long mass, the sentences were read out loud. Those who confessed might get whipped, publicly shamed, or locked in prison for years. But for those who refused to confess, or who were found to be repeat heretics, the sentence was death. The Inquisition, being a religious court, didn't actually kill anyone. In a final, insane legal loophole, they would relax the condemned to the secular authorities, who would carry out the final punishment. The heretic would be taken outside the city walls, tied to a stake, and burned alive. During Torquemada's 15 years as Grand Inquisitor, it's estimated that at least 2,000 people were burned at the stake. Tens of thousands more were imprisoned, tortured, had their property taken, and their lives completely destroyed. He had created an actual reign of terror, a system where the smallest mistake, or even just the idea of one, could lead to a horrible death. By the early 1490s, Torquemada was at the absolute peak of his power. He had successfully built his terror network, getting rid of thousands of supposed heretics. But for him, the job wasn't done. The conversos had been his main target, but he was still convinced that having a large, unconverted Jewish population around was a corrupting influence, a constant temptation for conversos to go back to their old religion. The final Christian victory of the Reconquista came on January 2nd, 1492, when the last Muslim ruler surrendered Granada. Boom! For the first time in centuries, Spain was a territorially united Christian land. For Ferdinand, Isabella, and Torquemada, it was time to finish their project of religious purification. On March 31st, 1492, they issued the Alhambra Decree. The order was insane and had zero room for negotiation. Every single Jew in Spain had 3 months to either convert to Catholicism or get out of the country forever. Anyone who refused and stayed after the deadline would be executed. The Jewish community, which had been in Spain for over 1,000 years, was thrown into absolute chaos. A desperate group of wealthy Jews went to King Ferdinand and offered him a massive 30,000 ducats to cancel the decree. As the king was actually considering the offer, legend says that Torquemada burst into the room. In a moment of incredible drama, he held up a crucifix and threw it on the table in front of the king and queen. "Judas Iscariot sold his master for 30 pieces of silver," he yelled. "Your highnesses would sell him for 30,000. Here he is. Take him and sell him." The appeal to God, or maybe the public humiliation, worked. The deal was off. The decree stood. The result was a human tragedy on a massive scale. Estimates say somewhere between 40,000 and 100,000 Jews chose to leave, abandoning their homes and everything they owned to escape to Portugal, North Africa, and the Ottoman Empire. Tens of thousands more, maybe as many as 50,000, decided to stay, converting to Christianity to save their lives and property. But get this, these new Christians just became fresh meat for the very institution that had forced them to convert. Torquemada's insane machine now had a whole new population to watch for any sign of heresy. Torquemada had achieved his life's work. In his mind, he had purged Spain of heresy and put it on God's good side. He was now one of the most powerful and feared men in the kingdom. But he was also one of the most hated. It's said he traveled with a personal bodyguard of 250 men, living in constant fear of being assassinated. In his final years, his health started to fail. Even the Pope, Alexander VI, got alarmed by all the complaints about Torquemada's insane cruelty and appointed assistant inquisitors in 1494 to try to rein him in. Stripped of some of his direct power, but with his faith as unbreakable as ever, Torquemada retired to a monastery. He died on September 16, 1498, with zero regrets, completely firm in the belief that he had been the savior of his country and the hammer of heretics. The legacy of Tomás de Torquemada is unbelievably dark and deep. The institution he perfected, the Spanish Inquisition, would cast a shadow over Spain for another 350 years, only being officially shut down in 1834. Can you believe that? His name has literally become another word for religious fanaticism and state-sponsored cruelty. He is a chilling reminder of a timeless, terrifying truth, that the most horrific acts of inhumanity are often carried out not by monsters, but by people who are 100% convinced that they are the good guys. He was a man of God who made torture sacred, a humble friar who became the architect of suffering on a massive scale, all in the name of creating a purer world. His story is the ultimate warning of what happens when you mix absolute faith with absolute power. If you can't believe how crazy this story was, smash that like button and subscribe for more insane history videos. Let us know in the comments, what other historical figures' dark legacy should we uncover next? Thanks for watching.